Okay, welcome to my channel, Does Red Bull Racing. I'm here to review the Belgium Grand Prix, the 2013 race. Well, kind of whole weekend, but the main focus of the video is about the race. From a Red Bull point of view, it's a race where, on paper, the Red Bull team's not meant to do well with the way the car's designed, its main philosophy. Often criticised for it. They are a very high downforce package and very high downforce design sort of car. And Spa's not quite about that. The same as Monza, and kind of the same with Canada. Although there is some subtle variations between the three tracks. So it's not surprising that Red Bull really do suffer around those three tracks. So to find out that Sebastian Vettel was won by 17 seconds in the race and qualifies in P2, and with Mark Webber as well in P5. Not forgetting him. Mark Webber qualified in P3 and he finished P5 in the race. So all in all, it's probably a very, very, very strong weekend for Red Bull. They'll be the most happiest team, just behind Ferrari, who also had another good weekend. I thought they did very well. But switching back to Red Bull, the practice sessions was compromised with the rain. With what they was doing with the setup of the car, it's very obvious what they was doing. They was going for the Monza spec, the low downforce setup. Kind of the same which they used in Canada, but I think there's a few small revisions and a few tweaks with it, because it's you need a little bit more downforce, I think, in Spa or Monza. So effectively it was the Monza package which they opted for. Vettel got a puncture, which was quite scary and worrying, but thankfully that was just debris out of Kimi's broken floor. So it wasn't nothing to do with the tyres messing up again. So thank God that wasn't the case, because there's a lot of stress. It's very much like Silverstone. So much energy going for the tyres, so there's always a possibility, especially if the tyres are vulnerable, which they have been this year, for that to happen again. And then moving on to qualifying, the rain kind of hindered Red Bull and gifted it to Mercedes. I generally thought Red Bull had a 1-2 opportunity in Spa because of the setup, and but the rain came, unfortunately, and most teams, and this is kind of overlapping onto the race now, most teams usually go for a sort of a high downforce setup for Spa, on the strength that it's going to rain during a race or it's going to rain during qualifying. So they usually just play it safe and commit themselves to a high downforce setup. This was obvious in qualifying. The Red Bulls really struggled in sector 2. And that's where Hamilton got pole. He had an amazing sector 2. He completely went for it. It was a fantastic sector. If you can watch the replay, it's worth watching. Hamilton was the sort of distance behind Vettel at the start, and then it was the same. And then when you got to the bus stop chicane, he was literally on his gearbox. So that was a downfall, but about having a low downforce setup for Red Bull, because sadly it rained during qualifying. But all in all, P2, especially in mixed conditions, you just got to be grateful, regardless if you've got the best package that weekend. Now onto the race. Vettel and Webber, 2 and 3. That's quite a bit actually this season, with those two being together. Unfortunately, Webber had a clutch issue. He's not the best starter in Formula 1, that's for sure. I'm sure we'd all agree. And on his formation lap, there was messing about with the settings of the clutch, talking to the team, and effectively he knew he was going to be compromised. So sadly, he couldn't get the launch which he wanted from the starting line. Vettel got a brilliant start, and this is one reason out of two why he won the race. He was very smart. He kind of did what he did in Bahrain with Rosberg and Alonso, in the sense that from the starting line he used a tiny bit of KERS, and then he significantly used it later on in the first lap. So in Vettel's case, through a Rouge and then along the straight, he used the KERS to overtake Lewis. I for one was completely shocked that happened. You know, the straight line speed of the Red Bull. But then it finally dawned on me that they've clearly committed themselves to a low downforce setup, the Monza spec, and effectively what they did with the rear wing, they reduced the louvres which they have on the rear, and effectively what that does, it reduces the drag. It's not as simple as that. Of course, you've got to balance it with the front wing, because that would be unstable. So they went for like a sort of a hammerhead sort of style front nose. They changed that as well, and they got the balance right, and it made them a beast in the straights. And I bet they should have had that in Hungary, but Hungary completely different sort of circuit to Belgium. So that effectively gave the Red Bull very good pace in the straight line, but because of Webber's bad start in P3, he dropped back. He was behind the Mercs, the Ferraris for most of the race. And the problem is with the Red Bull is when you're behind a car, especially with a low downforce setup, you just lose aerodynamics spinning in the dirty air, so you're losing grip all the time. So you can't be able to amount an overtaking move or anything on any of the cars. So Webber had to do a little something different on the strategy, so they pitted him and they put him on the hards, whereas the others went on back onto the options again. So Webber was on the hards, and they took a risk whether they could do something a little bit different on their second stint and hope that there was rain, but there wasn't. And back onto Vettel, the reason why he was winning and pulling away from the likes of Lewis, Alonso and so on, is because Alonso and Hamilton and Rosberg all were running a high downforce setup, a wet setup, and they was actually hoping and praying for a wet race, and that never happened. That never was the circumstance, unfortunately, for the other teams. They was left compromised, and they had a lot of drag on the straights, as you clearly see from the start. And Red Bull took a gamble, but they got it right. They could have completely got it wrong. I do understand that it wasn't a complete Monza setup, so it wasn't the lowest downforce setup, but it was pretty much near that. And if it was to rain on race day, then they would have been in serious trouble, and it would have looked silly. They probably would have got. They probably would have even got a podium, but even still, they could have thrown away the win, or it could have been even worse than that. So with them changing their setup, it paid dividends for them, and whereas the other teams were left scratching their heads because they was hoping for rain during the race. I was expecting rain myself, but it never came for them. A few interesting facts about the Belgian Grand Prix. Vettel's 17-second win was the biggest this season yet so far. He also joined an elusive kilometres club. He passed 5,000 kilometres in the lead. So that's along with the likes of Ayrton Senna, Schumacher, Rosberg. He also picked up the 19th fastest lap of his career, which brought him level with Mansell. I think and Senna. I think he's level with Mansell, and he still needs to catch Senna. I think that's the case. So some more records for him to break. He's on his 31st win of his career. So the records are tumbling for him now. Gonna end the video with one last positive. The fact that if you remember last year with Jenson Button, He took a gamble, went for a low downforce setup, just like Sebastian did. And McLaren got a dominant win. Well, Button got a dominant win in Spa last year. Effectively, Red Bull did the same. They took a risk. They emulated what Button did last year. And then if you think about the next race in Monza, which team won that? It was a McLaren, it was a Hamilton. And effectively Hamilton, who had a high downforce in Spa, copied a Button setup for Spa and then took that onto Monza and then went on to win in Monza. So that bodes well if you're a Red Bull fan, and hopefully they'll carry on with this low downforce setup for Monza, providing the weather is good. And so that might give a slight hint of what's going to happen in a fortnight's time. But having said that, Mercedes are quite quietly confident. Ferrari tend to be really good on their home soil, so nothing's a foregone conclusion. So yes, I hope you enjoyed this review. I really enjoyed the race, even though it was slightly one-sided. For a Red Bull fan, it's brilliant. Vettel extends his lead in the World Driver Championship by 46 points. And Red Bulls are now edging near a 100 point gap in the constructors, and we're just way over the halfway point. So yeah, please like the video if you enjoyed watching this. Subscribe for some more Red Bull related content. I'm also going to get Twitter up and going, and a Facebook sort of page going. It should be in the description below. Please like it. I'm going to do little posts and stuff, which should be cool. And I'll see you in a future video. Take care.